I came home sick on a Tuesday, stood in the kitchen over the old cast iron gravity vent, the one I'd left open during the renovation because it made a good passive return. Denise's laugh rose through the grate. Not her polite dental office laugh. Her real one, a man's voice answered. Low, comfortable. Then, Denise, nobody ever comes down here. I stepped back from the vent without making a sound. If this story hooks you, hit subscribe and tell me your country in the comments. It means the world to me. My name is Curt Jankowski, 52 years old. I married Denise when I was 29, after I rebuilt her father's furnace for free during a 2-year courtship that mostly happened in his basement while she brought me lemonade and I sweated through my shirt. Her dad shook my hand when it was done and said, "You're a patient man, Curt." I took that as a blessing. We bought the ranch house on Bellbrook Avenue in Dayton for $127,000. 3 bedrooms, 1 bath, pale yellow vinyl siding, and a detached garage with a driveway. I poured myself over a weekend in July. I spent the next 20 years making it better. New electrical panels the first summer, refinished the hardwood floors the second, rewired the kitchen, upgraded the plumbing, installed a smart thermostat system with zoned heating so every room stayed exactly where it should be. I'd come home from running calls all day with my partner Luis Medina and spend my evenings under the house or inside the walls. Luis and I started Jankowski and Medina HVAC when I was 34. 2 guys, 1 van, and a reputation for showing up when we said we would. 15 years later, we're booked 3 months out. Not because we're cheap, because we're right. The basement was my pride project. 800 square feet. Took me 2 years. Maple-top workbenches I built from stock lumber. Pegboard tool walls organized by function. Overhead LED lighting I wired on its own circuit. A separate HVAC zone with its own thermostat and supply register so I could keep it at 68 degrees while Denise kept the upstairs at 72. I collect vintage thermostats. 37 of them mounted on a display board in the garage. Mercury bulb Honeywells from the 50s. Round brass models from the 40s, early programmable units from the 80s. Each one cleaned and working. I find them at estate sales and flea markets. Denise called it the most boring hobby on earth. The day our daughter Sophie was born, I opened a college savings account at Fifth Third Bank. $200 a month. Automatic deposit every month for 17 years. I never missed once. Build things that last. Maintain them. The people inside will be safe. That was the whole idea. Standing over that vent on a Tuesday, hearing that laugh, I got my answer about whether the foundation meant something. 5 years back. Small things at first. Denise stopped wearing the fleece I bought her and started making comments about my Carhartt jacket. "You've had that thing since Obama's first term, Curt. It's embarrassing," she called the basement dusty. Called my thermostat collection your little museum of boredom. She started scrolling Facebook in the evenings, comparing our life to people she hadn't spoken to since graduation. "Kendra's in Charleston now," she'd say, not looking up from her phone. "Amy's got that house on the lake. Remember Amy?" I remembered Amy. Amy's husband was an alcoholic who crashed his boat into a dock. 6 months before that Tuesday, Denise started going to marriage counseling at Grace Lutheran. Solo sessions with Pastor Gene Ackerman, a well-meaning man in his 60s who ran the church like a kindly principal. She told him she was a lonely wife trying to save her marriage to an emotionally distant husband. She told the congregation the same thing. Wednesday night prayer circles, Sunday coffee hour. Denise built a story where she was the saint and I was the absence. I didn't know about any of it until later. What I did know was Tuesday poker night. Every Tuesday for 12 years, our kitchen table hosted 4 guys and a deck of cards. Me, Rick Pellegrino, Lewis, and a couple other trade workers from the area. Rick and I went back to trade school together. He ran Pellegrino General Contracting, did kitchens and bathrooms around Dayton. Stocky guy, loud, gold chain he'd worn since '94. He drove a red F-150. He washed every Sunday like it was a church obligation. Poker nights meant Rick knew our house. Every room, every door, every schedule. He knew I left for job sites by 7:30 every Tuesday morning and rarely came home before 5. Around the same time Denise started counseling, she started calling the basement creepy. "Nobody goes down there," she'd say whenever I mentioned it. "It's just your workshop and spiders." I accepted that. Then I noticed the bank statements. Sophie's college fund was lighter than it should have been. Small withdrawals over 10 months. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. I trusted the marriage, like I trusted my ductwork. Maintain it, and it holds. I never checked the return. Luis was driving me home in the work van. I'd been running a fever since 6 that morning, couldn't keep food down, and Louis had finally told me to sit in the passenger seat and shut up. His way of caring. We turned onto Ridgemont, 2 streets from my house, and Luis slowed the van. He didn't say anything. He just slowed down. I looked where he was looking. Grace Lutheran's parking lot. Nearly empty on a Tuesday at 10:30 in the morning. Except for one truck. Race red F-150, aftermarket chrome step bars. Rick Pellegrino's truck, parked at the far end of the lot, angled away from the street like someone trying not to be noticed in a vehicle designed to be noticed. "That Rick's?" I asked. Luis nodded once. "Rick, 12 years at my table. He knew my schedule down to the minute." I didn't say anything else. Luis pulled into my driveway. Denise's Honda sat where it shouldn't have been. She was supposed to be at the dental office until 3. Her car was home. Rick's truck was at the church. I went inside. That's when I stood over the vent and heard the laugh. I could have gone downstairs, could have kicked the basement door open and let 23 years of trust come out as a fist. That's what most men would do. I'm not most men. I'm a diagnostician. When a system throws a fault code, you don't rip the unit apart. You read the data. I backed out of the kitchen, made no sound, walked out the front door and sat in the passenger seat of Lewis's van, still idling in the driveway. I opened the Nest app on my phone. The same app I use 50 times a week for client installations. I pulled up the basement zone history and scrolled back. Tuesday, January 14th. Occupancy detected 10:07 a.m. to 1:43 p.m. Zone heating activated. Tuesday, January 21st. Occupancy detected 10:12 a.m. to 1:51 p.m. Tuesday, January 28th. Occupancy detected 9:58 a.m. to 2:14 p.m. 8 months. Every Tuesday, I was on a job site. I screenshotted every entry, every timestamp, every record the system kept because that's what systems do when you build them right. "Drive me to Miami Valley Hospital," I said. Tammy Pellegrino's finishing her shift. Luis put the van in reverse. Tammy Pellegrino was in the ER parking garage, still in her scrubs and hospital clogs, when I called her. She picked up on the second ring. "Tammy, it's Curt. I need you to come to my house. Rick's truck is at the church lot 2 blocks from my place. Denise is home, and I think you know what I'm telling you." Silence for 3 seconds. an ER nurse who spent her career reading people who lied about how they got hurt. 11 minutes, she said, and hung up. While I waited, I built the package. Not out of rage, out of habit. When you diagnose a system failure, you document everything before you touch anything. The Nest app screenshots went first. 8 months of Tuesday occupancy, time-stamped down to the minute. I saved each one to my camera roll, then texted the entire batch to my own email. Next, the fleet GPS log from the van's tracker. It showed Lewis and me leaving the Kettering job site at 9:47 a.m., arriving at 1847 Bellbrook Avenue at 10:19 a.m. Proof. I came home unannounced, unplanned. Then Sophie's college fund. I called Fifth Third Bank, asked for the withdrawal history on the custodial savings account, the one I'd opened the day Sophie was born. The rep read back the numbers. 17 years of $200 deposits. 10 months of unauthorized withdrawals. $4,700. Who authorized the withdrawals? I asked. The cosigner on the account, sir. I hung up and screenshotted the statements. Sent those to my email, too. Luis sat beside me the whole time. Quiet. He didn't ask questions. He didn't offer opinions. He was there, and he saw everything. And if anyone ever asked him what happened that morning, he could tell them down to the minute. He was the kind of witness no lawyer could touch. I got out of the van, walked to the side of my house, past the utility meters, to a gray weatherproof cover mounted on the exterior wall. Inside was the furnace disconnect switch, standard safety feature on every residential install. I put this one in myself 4 years ago during the furnace upgrade. I flipped it. The furnace died. The compressor stopped. Every supply register in the house went silent. The basement zone, set to 68 degrees with its own thermostat on its own circuit, started losing heat. Within minutes, that basement would get uncomfortable. Within 10, it would be cold enough that nobody would want to stay. They'd have to come upstairs. I walked back to the van. Down the street, Tammy's silver Camry turned the corner. The furnace had been dead for 4 minutes by the time I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where we'd played poker every Tuesday night for 12 years. Tammy stood behind me, arms crossed, still in her scrubs with her hospital, ID clipped to her pocket. Luis stayed outside in the van. He'd be there if anyone needed his account of the morning. My fever hadn't broken. Sweat on the back of my neck. I didn't wipe it. The house was getting cold. I could feel it in the floor through my boots. The vent near the sink was silent for the first time in years. 8 minutes. That's how long it took. Footsteps on the basement stairs. The hallway was 10 degrees cooler than it had been 20 minutes ago. Then Denise's voice rising through the hallway. Curt, is the furnace acting up again? She opened the basement door and stepped into the kitchen, saw me at the table, saw Tammy behind me. Her hand went to her collarbone. Rick appeared on the stairs behind her. Stocky, goatee, gold chain. The color left his face like somebody had pulled a drain plug. Denise recovered first. She always did. Why are you home? You're supposed to be at work. Her hand stayed at her collarbone. What is this? You don't get to ambush me in my own house. I waited until she stopped talking. Then I spoke the way I speak when I'm angry, which is quiet and plain. Sit down, you're going to stop talking, and you're going to listen to what I have to say. Because I have been listening to you for 23 years, and I think I've earned 5 minutes. I set my phone on the table. Nest app open, blue interface glowing. Every Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., 8 months. Every week, I was on a job site. Someone was in my basement. Denise's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I laid the bank statements next to the phone. Sophie's college fund. 17 years of deposits. 10 months of withdrawals I didn't authorize. $4,700. Then the GPS log, fleet tracker from the van, shows I came home at 10:19 this morning. Luis drove me. He's outside. Rick took a step forward. Now, hold on, Curt. This isn't what you... Tammy spoke from behind me. One word, sit. Rick sat on the basement stairs like a kid sent to the corner. His wife's voice carried the same authority she used on drunks and liars in the ER. He knew that voice. Denise stared at the table. At the phone, the statements, the GPS printout. 3 columns of evidence laid out like a hand of cards on the same surface where her affair partner had bluffed his way through 12 years of Tuesday nights. Her practiced smile didn't collapse. It just wasn't there anymore, like it had never existed. She had no counter-question, no subject change, no laugh to fill the silence. I gave her silence instead. She'd earned that much. Tammy filed for divorce from Rick within the week. No hesitation, no counseling, no second chances. I retained a family attorney the next morning, brought the Nest screenshots, the bank withdrawal records, the fleet GPS log, and Luis's signed statement confirming the timeline of that Tuesday down to the minute. Ohio is an equitable distribution state. 20 years of documented home improvements, consistent income from a business I built, and 17 years of faithful deposits into my daughter's future. Against that, Denise's unauthorized withdrawals from Sophie's college fund. The judge would see a provider and a thief. That's not editorializing. That's math. The counseling notes from Pastor Ackerman became the part I almost felt sorry about. Almost. For 6 months, Denise had sat in that man's office building, a case that I was cold, absent, checked out. She told him she was trying to save our marriage. She told the congregation the same story. Wednesday prayer circles, Sunday coffee hour. The whole church believed her. Then the truth came out, and every person in that congregation did the same math I'd done with the thermostat logs. She built her alibi with the pastor while her affair partner parked at the pastor's church. The same parking lot. Every Tuesday. The pity reversed direction overnight. Not toward me. I didn't want pity. But away from Denise, which was the same thing to a woman who lived on the sympathy of others. Rick lost his best friend, lost his marriage, lost half of Pellegrino General Contracting in Tammy's settlement. The poker group dissolved. None of the guys could sit at a card table together without thinking about what had been happening beneath it. Denise lost the house she'd called unglamorous for 5 years, lost the stability she'd mistaken for stagnation, lost the image she'd spent months building at Grace Lutheran. The only thing she'd maintained with any consistency, and it was a lie. Sophie's college fund was the first item I settled. Before the house, before the assets, before anything. The withdrawals were replenished in full through the divorce agreement. $4,700 returned. My attorney made certain of it because I told her to. My daughter's scholarship to play volleyball at Wright State came through the same week the papers were finalized. She called me from campus. "Dad, I got it." "I know you did," I said. The system Denise dismissed as boring became the instrument that took her apart. The ductwork, the thermostats, the records nobody looks at. The whole system failed at the part nobody noticed until it was gone. If you're enjoying my story, hit like and rate it from 1 to 10 in the comments. Tell me why. Thank you. 6 months later, I sat in my basement workshop. The maple workbenches were clean. The pegboard walls were organized by function. The LED lights hummed overhead on the circuit I'd wired myself. The space was mine again. Sophie got her scholarship. She calls every Sunday evening, right around 7, and talks for exactly as long as she wants. Sometimes 10 minutes. Sometimes an hour. I never rush her. The night of the confrontation, after everyone left and the house was empty and quiet, I came down here. I pulled off my wedding ring, titanium, scratched and dulled from 23 years of sheet metal, pipe fittings, soldering irons, and 10,000 handshakes. I set it on the maple workbench and left it there. It's still there. I see it every time I come downstairs. I don't move it. I don't hide it. It sits where I put it, in the space where 23 years went to die, and it reminds me of exactly what I need to remember. Luis and I are booked through spring. Same van, same stencil on the side, Jankowski and Medina HVAC. Heating, cooling, peace of mind. We said we'd show up, and we do. Tammy Pellegrino sent me a Christmas card. No letter, no long message, just 5 words in her nurse's handwriting. Thank you for calling me. I pinned it to the pegboard above my bench. Last month, I found a 1953 Honeywell TH7 at an estate sale in Kettering. Round brass face, mercury bulb still intact after 70 years. I brought it home and restored it in one evening. Number 38 on the display board. You know what people don't understand about ductwork? It's all about the return, the supply side, the warm air coming out of the register. That's what everyone notices. Nobody thinks about where it comes back. The quiet work, the faithful deposits, the foundation nobody notices until it's gone. But if your return is wrong, nothing works. Doesn't matter how good your furnace is. The whole system fails at the part nobody bothered to check. I got my return right. That's enough.